Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here,
That is
along
the
with
feeling,
Rogan
isn't it?
Smith. I have a scratchy throat, so I'm very fearful.
Ooh.
I'm tired because I
Me
didn't go to
too.
bed till like really late because I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about death. Then I had a very busy day, and so that's how I feel. How are you feeling?
I feel tired.
Mm-hmm.
I feel.
Were you thinking about death?
No,
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm thinking about life,
Okay.
and I'm thinking about good times, and money.
So you live in a
great weather.
you live
all
in a
that
fantasy
stuff.
then.
It's not a fantasy.
Okay.
How is that a fantasy?
I'm just saying.
How is
I'm
that a
just saying.
fantasy?
I
You
don't
think
know. I'm just
about
asking.
life and money and good times
You have
and good
plenty of
weather.
cash? Can you give me some?
I think you have enough cash.
No, I don't. I need.
My money pales in comparison.
No. Listen to me.
It's like a drop
Let
in the
me make
like
this.
a
let me-
teardrop
let me
in the
do
bucket
this. I know this is
of
crass.
your finances.
Yeah, right. I know this is crass, but hey, you don't ask, you don't get. You know what I mean? I'm turning 60, as you know, and look, if you feel so
So inclined, eh?
just if you're looking to get a gift.
If I'm looking to get
No,
it,
anyone. I'm talking
Oh.
about Radio Land. I ain't just talking to you. I'm talking about the whole of Radio Land. Cash is what.
That's what you want?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
need
but then
anything
if
else.
I give you cash for your birthday, I would feel the pressure to give you a lot of cash, and I don't want to feel
No,
that
because
pressure.
that's why I'm putting out to Radio Land, because it's collective. You see what I'm saying? So you just do your piece.
But what if I only wanted to give you $100?
That's satisfactory because if
I shouldn't even say
if
only 100
if
because that's a lot of money.
If 1,000 people out there looking to do it, that's $100
They
grand.
ain't gonna do it, so you
Okay.
only
So-
can collect from me.
I know at least between you and Ken, that's $200. So I straight.
You get Kendrick in this. Kendrick's so in on
Ken
your
is my
run.
man.
So
Okay.
that's what you want? Cash?
Strictly cash. There's
For sure?
nothing because what am I going to get? What are you going to get? Some socks?
No.
I got socks that are not open right now. Underpants, I got packs.
Underpants.
Yeah, I got packs of
I get
underpants.
you underpants.
No, I'm just saying it's what I need. There's nothing you can. There's only certain things I need. Okay.
Yeah, but what do you want?
Cash. I'm being very candid, and no one seems to
Beyond
accept
cash,
it.
what else?
That's it. Because I don't.
You
I
on
don't
hard times?
no, I'm not on hard times, but I would like to stockpile some cash. So retirement is coming. I don't need a car, right? I don't
Your
need a
birthday
house.
is next week?
The 13th. I don't need a house. I don't need no shoes.
Well, you want $100?
I would buy into it, but I want it on the birthday. I don't want no pre-birthday
Give it
gift.
to you now.
No, I don't like that.
Why?
It'd have to be one of them cards with the little thing.
You can throw it away anyway, so
No,
why?
I'm going to read it. And I got to keep
You
it.
don't keep cards. You don't
excuse
keep
me.
cards.
Excuse me. I would like to have a card. You asked me what I want, and now you're pushing back.
I say
Okay.
I give you the $100.
No, but I want that.
now.
I want it in a thingum. I don't want no cash with you like you throw at something at someone. In a card with your name, and a greeting, some sort of clever greeting.
What do you do with the cards
I keep them in my drawer.
at work?
I don't at home. I mean, I keep them wherever I get them.
Do you go and look at them like from time to time?
To be honest with you, as I'm cleaning and doing, I'll pick them up and read through them.
And okay.
But that's not your purview. That's not your concern. You asked me what I want. I'm telling you what I want. You're not supposed to be interrogating me as to what I'm going to do with it. Next thing you're going to know what I can do with the cash.
First of all, let me tell you something. First of all, at least I'm giving you what you want. You don't ask me what I want. You don't ask me what I want. My birthday
I know
just
what
went.
you want. You know what you want?
You don't
Nothing.
ask
That's
me
what you say.
what I
I'm
want.
scared to ask you because
That's a lie.
you'll reject you.
I mean, that is true. That is true.
Okay, so
but you
I'm
should
glad
still
you said
ask.
it.
That is true, but you just still ask.
No, it's too much pressure.
Don't you, but,
In
but,
your case
but you just-
specifically,
you
out of
just
everyone
go
in the
and
world,
you get whatever you want and not what I may want.
in the world, you're the last person anyone wants to ask, what should you get? Because your response is going to be, don't get me nothing.
Yes, or last time I think for Christmas I said like a Jeep
Well, then I asked.
or
A Jeep?
or
Like a car
computer.
Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. Uh-huh. Go ridiculous.
That's what I
Okay?
said.
You could get like $100 worth of Jeep. So you can get a piece of a Jeep. And hopefully the rest of the people who are listening can give you the rest of the Jeep.
I give you the money.
Yeah, that's all I want, cash.
I give you the money.
I think about it, Ken. I don't know about you, right? First of all, do you record? What is it that you absolutely need, other than because everyone could use some cash, right? Do you need you don't want no one bringing no Listerine or no toiletries?
He
Yeah,
has big needs.
I'm saying we have a lot of wants, right? We have a lot of wants, a lot of material wants. I'd like an 80-inch, but if you get me the cash, I could get that. You see what I'm saying? So just get the cash and I'll make it aside.
What size TV do you have currently?
I'll tell you, but I'm just saying, why are you asking that?
Just tell me.
I have several different sizes.
Okay, what's the biggest size that you've got?
I have a 60-inch.
Okay, how much is an 80-inch?
I would say probably about 25.
100.
Uh-huh.
What you need the 80-inch for?
Because I want to replace the 60-inch with the 80, put the 80 in where I have the 85. I mean the 60. It's a remodeling. Don't worry. Don't concern yourself about
my
that.
money won't even be able to.
You know what I want?
That's not going to go far with your 2,500.
Collective. You keep on thinking about you. It's all about you. Listen. I have a plan that I want to get. And you know what? Hotels, man. I go to a lot of hotels, and hotels give you great ideas, especially when it comes to bathrooms, right? And you know what I want to get? And they're cheap. When I say cheap, I mean they're almost the cost of a TV. Is the TV in the mirror?
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you seen it, right, Ken? Yeah, it's a mirror, and then you see it's good for bathrooms.
No, I've never.
So while you're brushing your teeth, you do a little MSNBC.
Is it that serious?
Well, it's a thing.
You put the TV on in the bedroom, and then you go and brush your teeth.
No, but then that's not TV. That's now radio.
I just listen to it.
No.
Then you could go and walk out and go right there and brush your teeth and watch the TV.
Even when you're
no, you shouldn't be. You should. That's the time to read. That's the time to catch up on your reading.
I have a TV in front of the throne. Yeah, the Zulu implement. Mm-hmm. But I don't like that no more. It's outdated.
Okay.
So anyway, that's what I would like. If you're going to get me a TV and a mirror.
I won't.
Or, and by the way.
Not because I don't want to.
Let me just say this to you.
I can't afford to. When
you get a kind of gift for me, that's, I don't know if you realize, but when I mean installed. Okay.
Boy,
don't be giving me no. Don't be bringing me no TV, nothing like that in no box. No.
Yeah, I can't help you.
When I go out one day.
Can't help you.
You sneak in, and you install that.
And the more that...
and you put the card next to the thing, okay?
I just come to your house, sneak in your house to do it.
Get some people to say, take your head out, okay? Take it to the Tiki Lounge or something like that.
Tiki Lounge.
Mm-hmm. And then when they come home, oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Who gave me this? I open the card. Oh, nope. Rogan and Ken.
Kendrick, I know you get up in this. I get up in this.
Yeah, man. Mm-hmm. So what else is new? I'm a little depressed as well. I forgot to add that because the feedback I'm getting back from the Senate thing is not positive for me.
Okay.
The Republicans who were on the fence seem to be saying that this is enough for them. Mm-hmm. So when I go home tonight, I ain't checking that TV. I can watch something like Gunsmoke or something like that. You know about Gunsmoke? Mm-hmm. With James Arness?
Oh, I never watched it. I know about Gunsmoke.
All right.
I'm a Bonanza girl.
Oh, okay. With Haas? Mm-hmm. What about Chop Singh?
Yeah.
Hop Sing, not Chop Sing. Hop Sing.
You really always watch the show, right?
Let me tell you something. You know how Bahamians are so racist? Let me tell you how racist Bahamians are. Because I was using his name. That's what that was his name in the program, Hop Sing, right? I went to a function on the weekend, and they had a Bahamian MC, right? And they had, I don't know where he was from, but he was Asian photographer. Okay?
This was away?
This was away. The Asian photographer. And the Bahamian guy says he's like going to go do some seating or whatever. And in order to get to the seating, he had to go past the photographer. Mm-hmm. So he goes, no, don't worry about it, Ling Ling. I ain't going to hit you.
You know I have to laugh, right?
I know, but it's...
you know I have to laugh, right?
It's so just inappropriate. And the guy didn't find it funny at all. Huh?
Did the guy hear him?
Oh, yeah.
What was his reaction?
Horror.
Really?
If I call you, okay,
No,
don't worry about it,
no.
Sambo.
I-
It'll be horror.
I agree.
Okay.
That's right. You heard
You know?
him.
Okay, listen, don't worry about Jemima. I can be okay. You can be okay. We'll be right back. So it was on the microphone.
So, okay, yeah, because I didn't know. I thought he was making a passing comment.
Yes, he was, but on the
No,
mic.
no, not on the microphone. Like I thought he was just like weaving through, like the crowd, and he made that comment.
It was for the whole world to hear.
Jesus, I would have fallen out.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I can't imagine if I were at a function away, and I'm standing doing something, and some guy just tries to get past me and goes, "Don't worry about it, Uncle Ben. You're gonna be all right."
Jesus.
You might get takeout.
You can do nothing.
No, I don't do nothing, but I'd be horrified. So you tell me about this mortgage thing.
Yeah, I mean,
But
my God, the
first
state
of all, the fact that they
Bahamas
say,
Mortgage Corporation. Go ahead.
look at NIB. They say 40%
Oh my
of the people
God. Oh my God.
40, not 58.
Listen, I in that.
You what?
I
You ain't
paying. I paying.
Yeah, okay.
I paying.
But 40% of the national insurance
People
who are supposed to be paying national
ain't
insurance
paying.
are not paying.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to try and line up,
They gonna what? What'd you say?
You're not going to be line up.
What you mean line
In
up?
time to get some benefit.
Oh,
You see
well,
what I'm
I don't
saying?
know what to
They
tell
could be-
them.
they will listen, the maternity thing, or that,
Or the death
pension.
benefit or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah. Where you pick that up?
No, you don't pick that up,
Pick
period.
nothing up.
You don't pick
And
anything
then,
up.
and then you'll be quote unquote heartless.
Right. Just like in this case where you're talking about 47% of the loans are in arrears. And me and Kendrick were talking about this. Listen to this.
How much? 47%?
47% of the loans are in arrears. Hold up. Because I want to find that exact.
How are they even
Listen.
still existing?
This is Romy Ferreira talking. Says, that in another instance, a client was granted a mortgage in June 2003 for what? $84,008.
Oh, that's where Kendrick get the 85.
Now this client is past due $83,872.67. Okay? Then they have delinquencies that are dating back to 2003.
I don't even think you call that past due.
Are you kidding me?
He never paid.
He just never paid. And
So you have a free house.
pretty much until you get tossed out. I don't think this is heartless at all. When people have been
First of all,
allowed to
let me-
stay in
you
a
know why
house
it's
for
not heartless?
years
Let me tell you why.
and pay nothing.
Let me explain to you very carefully why it's not heartless.
I said it's not heartless.
No, I'm going to explain to you why it's not heartless. Because that's my money.
That's my money. That's Kendrick's
Okay.
money. That's the people
Okay?
who listening.
So,
money.
so, excuse me. No.
No.
Okay? Because if I lend you $10, I need the $10 back. Okay? So this whole, where did we start with this thing about freeness?
Oh, this ain't just started.
I know, that's what I'm saying. When
Probably
did,
probably the 60s.
I mean, just
Probably the 60s. But listen to this. Listen to this. Right?
say never pay.
Hold on one second.
I think he was expecting to get repossessed any day. Don't worry about that. If they repossess your boy Nags,
Yeah, there ain't no hope for me and you, boss. Said it was discovered that the client had a deduction. Here's the thing: what really bothers
Yeah,
me.
salary
I would
deduction.
think that the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation, given these stats, that they would make it mandatory for individuals to do salary deductions, right?
especially if you work with government.
Okay, especially okay. Anyone.
Anyone, yeah,
I don't want
yeah,
to say
yeah,
especially.
yeah,
Let me take that back.
It'd be
Anyone.
just automatic.
Anyone.
I've had mortgages they doing the salary reduction on me. I've had loans where I get a little salary.
And they told you up front you have to do it in order to get the loan, or you chose to.
In several instances you had to.
Okay.
In several, not in all, but in several.
Because we were having this conversation.
I prefer that anyway because I don't want to think about it. But what I'm saying is, in the case of those loans, which are, and let me just say this, get insulted all you want, are high risk. Because I'm going to tell you, I used to manage the mortgage corporation insurance portfolio. Okay, I had the master policy. Okay, and what you found on those mortgages, and I used to be in the credit at one point, was that there were multiple people on the mortgage. So, for instance, not just the husband and wife,
A
but like the
cosigner.
cousin, but like the son, the child, like 5 people in the house. It took to qualify, which makes it very high risk. Because if I move out, I ain't checking for you no more.
Yeah.
But what they would do is in many homes where multiple people lived in the home
Yeah.
who were working, They use. I'm telling you, this is not uncommon. There were 4, maybe 5 people on the mortgage,
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
which is high risk to start off with,
I wouldn't
right?
do that.
So in a high risk situation, then you should make it mandatory.
Yeah. Now, like I was saying to Kendrick, I think I can understand if the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation said, we made it mandatory for them to do salary reductions. Do I say in reductions? Deductions.
You know what you mean.
And they
It
lost their
reduces your
job.
salary.
They lost their job.
Right.
Or, they quit their job and then it was an issue, you know what I
Right.
mean, later on. Because that happens,
And
right?
if you wait for government, you ain't losing your job. So that's
If you
a good
don't-
thing.
yeah, but they have other people
Yeah.
who get
Right.
mortgages with
Mortgages.
them. But I would make it a mandatory thing.
Mandatory.
And
It's
then
high
here,
risk. It's low income.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's why they go to
Yeah.
mortgage corporation. So it's actually high risk.
So they're talking. Romy Ferrer is talking about there's this person who didn't even want to do a salary deduction with BMC, and then turned right around and got like a salary deduction of $950 for some consumer loan
For
elsewhere.
vacation or something like that.
I don't know what it was, but
Yeah.
come on now.
But you see, this is why
But you
I
couldn't
tell
do it for
my
your
good
mortgage?
friends in the opposition, both oppositions, whenever someone's in opposition, don't just do this country a disservice.
That is a disservice.
by promoting delinquency.
Yeah.
That's
and
what you're doing.
foolishness.
You're promoting, guys. It's okay to be delinquent.
Have a heart for people, man. They're struggling.
So I could come and get legal freeze free then. Stay.
Let me ask you a question. If
Yes,
things were really, really bad with you and you're in your house and the bank says, Mr. Fields, you're behind 90 days, you have to go. Are you going to stay in there until they pull you out?
Well, I'm going to try to work with the bank as much as possible. They're going to have to call me if things are getting tight. They're going to know ahead of time.
Well, you're going to go to the bank because you're going to do the responsible thing.
No bank is going to call me.
You're going to do the responsible
and by
thing.
the way, I don't care what people think. I've had to do that.
Yeah.
I've had situations. I've gone through, in my earlier years in life, with businesses, with mortgage, with family related stuff. I've had to go and work it out with the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, they're more than willing to work with you.
Boy.
Okay, but you can't be going, well, I ain't paying nothing.
I'm not paying anything. I'm avoiding you
From
when you
2000
call me
what
to
did it
talk
from
about it.
1993 or whatever.
2003. How you figure you're going to remain in that house? And how are you
then-
going to get upset when they want you gone?
And this is where, sometimes you get upset with me, and then they say, and I don't know that person's circumstance, because if they've lost their job, that's a different thing. But then you got, you're riding, and you got, GQ, okay, and Gooch.
Living
okay?
large,
Living
with
large,
no,
yeah, and getting in the States.
with nothing.
Getting in the States.
Our
But because
priorities
it's
are
government,
so
you see, because,
screwed up.
Because,
yeah.
you know why? Because, unlike until today,
Yeah.
there was no enforcement.
Yeah.
We
We can do nothing. It's the government. Yeah, we can stay right now.
We're at 47%.
Yeah.
So
Wouldn't try that with RBC or First Caribbean.
that's why, I don't care what folks say, but there are some things that structurally have to get done that are going to cause some pain, going to piss some people off, but they cannot
So be it.
continue. You cannot continue to have an explosion of shanty towns. You cannot
Yeah.
continue to get medical health free.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, our guest this afternoon is going to be Dr. Dwayne Sands. Okay, you can't get it free.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you know when you get it free. See, and this is the irony. I was talking with someone. I had a meeting with the WTO group again yesterday. But we're not getting into the discussions of that meeting. But we had a discussion with Shivago Lang. In many jurisdictions, you have 3 layers of tax. You have sales tax, property tax, income tax, right? And then you have all kinds of different fees, etc. Well, we don't have income tax.
Yet.
So we have
But it's coming.
VAT and property tax. So we can't just lower the duties without making some other form of government. But they want to hear that. Now, if you want, and then by the same time we want to complain that the services don't exist, but then we don't want to, now, granted, there's wastage.
I was just about to say there's a lot of wastage,
There's
and
a lot
we're
of
already
wastage.
paying taxes, and we don't see
Right,
the
and we
result
don't
of
see the
that.
results.
So
But-
that's why
but-
people
but-
are so leery about it.
But there are scenarios where there are things that just, if you want the direct benefit, you can't just say, I'm going to go to the hospital and pay nothing. You must be could pay at $10 or $20. There are people who don't want to pay that,
Well, I will say there are some people who really genuinely cannot afford that. We have to implement something in the system to catch those individuals. There are people, Edward,
Right.
who have nothing. And they present to the
But
hospital.
there are
They
people
have
who have
nothing.
something.
Yes, I agree.
And there are a lot
but I don't
more
want it.
who have something, who could make up for the nothing, because that's a situation in the U.S. as well. Hospitals are obliged, certain hospitals, to take, certain emergencies, right? And then you just don't get elective service. You just don't get elective things, or if you a choice between cancer treatment and non-cancer treatment, then you don't get the cancer treatment. But you can't go there. You have a job and you can't pay $10. I mean, it's because then if you do, don't complain about how long you're going to wait and all that kind of stuff. And this is why we have problems even with paying the doctors. It'll be interesting to see what Dr. Sand says about this. But this mortgage corporation, there are two things that I heard this week that in the 40s. I was shocked to hear that 40% of people do not pay essentially what is Social Security.
Or NIB.
Okay, that means that they're putting my benefits at risk. Okay, mind you, they're not going to get any benefits, but in order for this thing to work, everyone has to pay, because that's how you get the return, right? And then the fact that might as well say 50%. 50% of the homes, that means when I drive around in Pride Estates or Jubilee Gardens or whatever, in theory, 50% of people in there living for free.
Yeah, pretty much. And people think that's acceptable?
And it's heartless, yeah. It's heartless if someone...
It's heartless if somebody is saying, I lost my job.
I've been paying my mortgage all along.
All along I was paying my mortgage, and I lost my job, and I told them, work with me, and they won't work with me.
Right.
They're pulling me out of my house.
Yeah.
I told them I can only pay $300, but I want to they could extend the life of the loan, whatever.
And they would do that.
Then that's when you say, well, geez, why don't you take something from the people they're trying to keep to remain in their home?
Yeah,
but
you're showing an effort.
You get
so you
keys,
get your furnitures?
You buy your furniture from I'm not called no furnitures. That is so inaccurate. And then you say, I don't have to pay anything.
Well, that's right now. That's
very
good. But see, and that translates into this. Listen, Rogan, I deal with government a lot, right? And it just dawned on me. Do you ever notice that? And I'm not going to call any particular department because it doesn't matter. But let's just say you have to go to Department A and you have to pay a fee, right? And you're supposed to get something in return for that fee. But it takes months, right? Now, can you imagine? I go to Sunshine Insurance. I pay for the insurance, right? And, I have to have, now it's a law.
Yeah.
So I have to have my insurance in the car.
Yeah.
But I don't get it for, say, 3-4 months. How is that acceptable? And what's even worse is when you complain about it, it's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You find yourself like having to explain yourself.
We've cultivated that attitude over the years.
Okay, you paid your money.
Yeah.
Can you imagine checking into the hotel? You pay your money, your credit card down, all that, and they tell you, listen, we'll probably get that room for you maybe 3-4 days from now.
Oh, the profanities that will spill from your lips.
But no, it would never happen because it's not acceptable, and I just wonder why we accept it. You would not accept that from a private concern. How have we grown to accept? Because even if they can't, for some reason, produce the document you need or something, right? There's got to be some kind. You go to an insurance company. What do you get? A temporary cover note. Temporary cover note.
Documents.
Until you get your document.
Something to show.
Something to show.
Something
but
to
you
show
go
anywhere.
around here, you go to these places. No, we just check back. 2-3 months later, you don't have anything. Your life is in disarray because you can't function without this particular document. We've got to learn to stop accepting it in the same way that we don't accept it from elsewhere. So I just hope that we grow from that. Meanwhile, your boy over now, let me ask you, can you as a human being tell the difference between when someone is mocking someone and someone is just stating facts? Are you able to do that and make that distinction?
When they're mocking versus stating facts?
You know what I'm speaking of, right? So Trump,
but yes, I can tell the difference.
Trump went on a rally. Now, you know that previous when the lady, what's her name, Cheney, what is its name, Blasey Ford or
Oh,
whatever.
Blasey, yeah.
He said, she was a very credible
Christine.
witness. She was compelling. He was very calm, right?
Hmm.
He then goes out on the rally because once you get on the rally,
Yeah, he gets riled up and he changes.
So he says, and she says, I only had one beer. I don't know how I got home. I wasn't driving. That's how
Yeah.
he said it. And the
Yeah.
people are laughing and chanting.
Hmm.
So everyone's reaction was, why is he mocking this woman?
Hmm.
And him and his minions say, no, he was just stating the facts.
Mm-mm. And we know his history when he's on the rally, when he's on the campaign trail or whatever. Yeah, right. He has zero credibility.
I tell you why I'm fearful. And I don't know why living in the Bahamas I should feel this way, but I guess we're world citizens. I fear that he may win, that the Republicans might win the midterms, because apparently this is rallying the base of the Republicans thing. And then we're doomed, which is like just all out incivility.
I've told you before, they'll win, and he'll win his second term. So get used to him.
Well, what's good is I came home to Nassau from New York last week, and I thought, wow, what a beautiful place I live in.
You?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you said that in the last show, but you were very critical about
let me tell you,
Bahamas.
that NY, they ain't got to get on up there. They got a cup of play, but that's about it.
Oh, I love New York.
We'll be back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan, the one and only Smith. She's related to the Smiths and the Smythes.
I'm related to the Smiths and the Smythes.
Yes.
There's
It's always
no Smythes.
They're Smythes. You never heard the term Smythe?
I have, but my Smith start with the I's and the Y's, but you pronounce it Smith.
I prefer to call it Smythe. Okay?
Okay.
So there you have it. Okay? All right.
The Smiths and the Smythes.
Smythes, yeah. But you are Smith. You from Andros, right?
I'm from Nassau. My mom's from Andros.
You're from Andros.
Daddy from Ragged Island. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I'm saying to you.
Sorry to you.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying to you is this. If your mother is from Andros, you're from Andros. And it's not Andros. It's Andros. And therefore
I
you're
don't say Andros.
And,
yeah.
No, that's you. But your mother, ask Illy. It's Andros and you're Smith. Okay? Like Cake Smith.
But he's from Long Island.
Yeah, but he mixed up. Don't worry about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Seymour's Long Island, which somehow I don't understand how they get into Long Island.
Because?
That section? No, what I'm saying is Long Island has a certain look. And it's not like Smith.
Okay.
It's not like Cake Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Any people from Long Island?
The northern part.
The northern part?
Maybe it's being closer to the sun.
Okay, but I think that's the set. I think that's the set who have the trees. I don't know. They need the shade. Anyway, our guest this afternoon is Dr. Dwayne Sands, who is the Minister of Health, and might I add, under a lot of heat. The heat is on. Talking about being close to the sun. Okay.
Mama said there'd be days like these.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about. I think I feel like saying, well, what's going on? What the heck is going on? So you got the doctors going down. You've got
the dialysis
issues with the components of the hospital. Air conditioning. Of course, you have your own little what you call turmoil going on with your court thing. So let's deal firstly with the state, and I think this is what we've got to start off with. The state of the health care system. If you listen to some things, pro and con from everywhere, when I say opposite, it's like really we're in deep doo-doo, but is it that bad?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the next thing then.
And it has been for some time. I practiced medicine in the public sector in the Bahamas for 24 years. And certainly as I walked in and out of the hospital, and that whether it's Princess Margaret or the Rand Memorial Hospital, where I've worked in both. I've worked in the Rand for more than 10 years and PMH for more than 20. You got the feeling every day that there was something wrong with what we accepted as a people in our public healthcare system. I describe it as medical apartheid. So you have the juxtaposition of Atlantis and the wonderful high-class tourist facilities, and then we had our public health system, which we figured was good enough for them people. Now, many of the people who were in positions of power had an alternative. They could go somewhere else.
Right.
So I'm going to provide this for these people, but I ain't going there.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Okay?
no. They ain't going to the schools.
It is a similar position with the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we look at the Bahamas since 1973 and the experiment that we call Bahamianization, we have to give ourselves a D- in terms of the results of that Bahamianization experiment as it relates to education, national security, immigration, and healthcare. And so one of my agenda politically has been to make a significant improvement in the quality of healthcare delivered primarily to those people that don't have a choice, and to destroy medical apartheid.
So you have a situation where, I mean, I know I grew up in experiencing both, right? So you grow up where you couldn't afford the other choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen the public health system. I've seen it. I've been in it. I remember the Rand, for instance, really was a depressing scenario. My father died at the Rand hospital. And the thing that freaked me out the most is when he was in that ward. First of all, they said they had no rooms or no beds.
Yeah.
But when they had a ward there, that when we finally got him in, he was the only one in the whole ward. There were like multiple beds. So the processing was screwed. But then the button, the basic thing, a button that you push to call a nurse, not working.
Well,
I mean, it's a basic thing.
let me preface all of the comments that we make this afternoon by acknowledging the yeoman's efforts of many of the people that work, most of the people that work
But
in our
it's a
public
system,
health care
not there.
system,
Not
okay?
yeah.
Were they adequately equipped or resourced?
That's what I'm saying. The button ain't working.
we would see a phenomenal difference in the experience, okay? But when you realize that the beds are sometimes 50 years old and they don't crank up, they don't crank down, they're not electrical beds, you start to manually elevate them and they're rusted out so that you can't turn them. When you realize that many of the lights don't work, when you look at the ceilings that leak, and realize that the hospital was built in 1952, then an additional extension was put on in the 1970s by Kaiser Permanente. We call that the new extension, which is now, what's that, 50 years ago? And then the single largest investment in healthcare was the critical care block, which came on stream in 2014. But the healthcare system has been chronically underfunded. And we have a cultural inclination which was politically supported that healthcare is free.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which
that
is not the case.
if anybody tried to have you make a contribution to the healthcare, then that's a no-no. And that was an expedient political tool. Look at what we're giving you. We're building all these wonderful clinics. We're building all these wonderful hospitals. We're building all this equipment. However, you don't adequately fund them and you don't maintain them. And as a consequence, what has happened is that the wheels have been falling off.
How does it work, Dr. Sands? So an individual comes inside the hospital and they just say, I don't have, because I think it's like a $10 registration fee or something along those lines.
87% of the people that come to our public hospitals pay nothing.
And yet they get the service.
And if you look at what it costs to run, if we just restrict our conversation to the Public Hospital Authority, so $216 million from the consolidated fund, and we collect about $10 to $12 million per year total. We don't collect a whole lot of insurance revenue, in large part because we lack the tools to bill and to collect. So if I send a bill to Rogan Smith for, let's say she delivers a baby, that bill may not be created for 2 months. And then we send it to Rogan Smith General Delivery. Now we know
how efficient that is.
How challenging that is.
Something from
How
March
efficient
27th.
So you may never get that bill until you come to deliver your next baby, or until you come to have your appendix out, or need some other health service.
And of course, you can get the free service even though you didn't pay the previous bill.
Right.
So if we look, for instance, at the 55,000 people that come to the emergency room in Princess Margaret Hospital, stroke, heart attack, gunshot wound, stabbing, serious problems. On average, we collect about $3 per patient.
Oh my God.
So here's the thing. Let me ask you this question, because obviously Bahamians, like they do and everything else, spend a huge amount of money on medical services aware. This is the have-nots, right? They spend a huge amount of money. Is there not a model that says if, and I don't know, it might be the car before the horse, right? If those services were here, that money would be spent here?
Yes, absolutely. And the model that we can use, because we don't have to rediscover the wheel, is the airport. Think of what is now called LPIA before the decision was made to upgrade and improve. The bathrooms were nasty. The parking lot was dark. You didn't have.
It was a
proper
bad
carousel.
facility.
The roof was leaking and so on and so forth. The carousels didn't work and so on. So the experience that we had, we say, boy, this Nassau International Airport. You make a decision that you're going to improve things, and the first thing you do is you fix the bathrooms. Remember that?
Yeah, no, I know. I was on the board.
The bathrooms were clean.
The first thing
people were going in there every hour and
because it was
sure
actually the greeting thing. You came down that escalator, and boom, that death on the chair.
Okay, then you start the construction, and all of a sudden you have a facility of which we are all proud. We are doing the same thing with our healthcare system, and in the last 15 months, we have now virtually, I say 98% completed an entirely new ward. We have a brand new X-ray department with a brand new CAT scan and all new ultrasounds, X-ray equipment, etc. We're putting in a whole new business office so that we can bill and collect.
You sorted out those procedures so that you can deal with the insurance
we
element,
are
or
in
no?
the process of doing that, because we believe that we would have the ability to collect as much as $40 million per year additional revenue if we had the means to bill and collect. So Ed Fields comes in, he has an insurance card. Let's say he get a cut on his hand. He wants the service, he's able to pay for the service, but we don't have the mechanism to produce a bill and a code and send it in time, so that by time as we prepare it, the insurance company says, well,
too much time has lapsed.
Too much time has elapsed, and we cannot process this claim. So that $500, $600, $800 gone. So we realize now that the two things go hand in hand. You modernize the facility, you allow the facility to compete, you provide state-of-the-art services in
because when people go to the hospital now, they want it to it's got to be like a resort. Because it's supposed to be a health place.
I would imagine the first thing is it's clean.
Yeah, so you want a clean,
clean, safe environment,
yeah.
And you want to know that the equipment is state of the art.
Right.
You want to know that the staff are well trained and courteous, and so on. So there are creature comforts, there are hotel amenities that have to be provided in the hospital, and so we recognize all of that. So what might have been acceptable in 1950 or 1960 is not acceptable today. Bahamians spend almost $1 billion a year in healthcare, and a huge amount of that is spent outside of the Bahamas.
Okay. All right, let's talk now the most recent thing that's been rising its ugly head. Well, let's stay on this for a second. So the air condition, this is a new wing, 2014. That's fairly new. Air conditioner working. What is that? Is that maintenance issues?
It is in large part maintenance. Unfortunately,
is it working now?
Not ideally. Let me give people a bit of a snapshot. So there are 4 massive chillers, each of which can move about 200 tons of air.
Yeah.
Chiller 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those chillers have associated with them about 24 or so compressors. And when you drop below a certain threshold of compressors that are working, the place doesn't cool.
Right.
There are sensors, there are fail-safe systems that respond to fluctuations in electrical quality and so on. And what has happened is that a number of those compressors and sensors get knocked out. So when the air conditioner was not working, a lot of the compressors were offline, and we were down to about 23% of our chiller capacity.
But how is this? Sorry. So let me try to put this in perspective. There used to be a time when you had a computer room, and if you didn't cool the computer room, the computer would burn up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you had to keep the computer room cool.
And you constantly monitored it to make sure it's
Okay.
working.
And if you went to a bank or any kind of quote unquote private enterprise, that computer room was freezing all
Yeah.
the time. Why is it that if this is a central component of running a hospital, right? Keeping operating rooms cool, etc. How is this? Because if you buy the air conditioner, first of all, you've got to determine, is there anyone who can maintain that
A
here?
maintenance schedule.
Okay?
Right.
If there's no one who can maintain it here, then you've got to bring someone in who is capable of maintaining it.
But you have to pay for that. And so a decision was made that we could not afford to pay for the maintenance contracts. And so most of the equipment in the critical care block, that's a $100 million investment.
That's
of
4
the
years
people.
old.
That's 4 years old. There were essentially no maintenance contracts on most of the equipment.
So would they expect to just run until they break
Yeah.
down?
You hope
And then you
and,
get
you
it-
hope,
and then
you hope and pray.
It comes out even
Then you
more
got to buy
expensive.
more expensive.
And so, unfortunately, this has been an expensive lesson for the people of the Bahamas, that a significant part of their investment has been lost. So, a year ago, we replaced one of the chillers at a cost of $250,000. This year, we have to replace 2 additional chillers. Now, that's 75% of the chiller capacity at 4 years at a cost of another $500,000. Now, you ask, what is the useful life of a chiller? 7, 8 years, according to.
So there should be
Would half
sinking
of-
funds and all that kind of stuff.
But the expectation that you would end up losing your chillers this quickly was certainly not anticipated.
Because of the lack of maintenance.
So, what do we have to do? We have to now replace them, and we have to implement the appropriate maintenance of not only the equipment itself, but the sensors and the monitoring. So we're going to bring that online and have somebody who knows how to monitor this system. It's very, very sophisticated.
You have the funding now to do that.
Well, therein lies the big problem. Hence the push to increase the revenue stream
You've got
for
to
the
do it.
hospital.
Yeah.
So we have no choice. We have to now go after revenue that we're losing. So if you have 87% of people who don't pay, either because they cannot pay, or because they will not pay, or because they are exempted from paying because there's a clause that says that civil servants don't pay, this person don't pay, etc. When we look at when those clauses came into effect, it was at a time before the people of the Bahamas were paying for health insurance
Yeah, because
for politicians, for nurses,
health
for
insurance
doctors,
is now
etc.
covered. Everyone's covered.
It's now
in it.
covered.
Yeah.
So the only places that benefit from that insurance would be private health facilities, private doctors, Jackson Memorial Hospital, Cleveland Clinic, etc.
Well, we got to take a break. We're going to come back because I want to ask something. There. We'll be right back. All right, I got to, it's amazing when you dig into things. Rogan Smith, you know what our theme is here, is to learn some stuff. Okay. I'm not going to pick on any facilities. I'm just going to do hypotheticals, okay? Facility A charges $5,000. Princess
Per day,
Margaret
per day.
Princess Margaret charges $100. Just using fake numbers. Okay. The health, what do you call it? The public service has a health insurance program.
Correct.
That is paid for by the government. The insurance company is paying a premium. They're getting the premium. They don't care where you go, where you don't go. But they care that they have to pay out Okay, so they want maximum pay in and minimal payout. So if they have a choice between paying out on the 5,000 and paying out on the 100, hey, you could increase your price to 1,000, and they still better off by 4,000, and you getting 10 times the revenue that you would have gotten.
And you
Why
have
does that
the
not happen?
same doctors, and in many instances, the same nurses,
Right.
and the same respiratory therapists, and the same occupational therapists
Right.
working in the private sector and in the public sector.
And
But
you
not
could
the
say,
same facility, though.
but
And that's the
if you
difference.
increase
the
if you-
facilities in the critical care block are the best in the Caribbean.
Yeah,
Full
right.
stop.
In the critical care, yeah.
But also, what I'm saying is, if you increase your revenue tenfold, you can have some good facilities.
That's what we hope.
and
That's the
that
expectation.
right, and you can also demand, where the insurance company certainly can certainly disincentivize someone to going to the more expensive one than the least expensive one.
But see, Ed and Rogan, you have to understand that this is about self-esteem. This is about accepting that we can be better than we are. Okay? So, I fly in a plane, I look in the cockpit, I see somebody who looked like me, I want to know whether he could fly the plane. Okay? So we as a people have accepted second best. We have said this is all we can do. This is the best that we could do. As opposed to collectively saying, what do we need to do to make our healthcare system better? Let us demand of the politicians to make it better. Let us not accept outdated equipment. Let us not accept outdated laboratory tests. And let us go ahead and invest in our health system so that we get better outcomes.
As long as they're prepared to foot the cost.
But Minister,
Because
you're
all that
paying the
comes at a
cost
cost.
anyway.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
paying
Comes
the
at a cost.
cost.
Minister
Whether you
Sands.
pay me now or pay me later,
Right.
you can pay me.
But Minister Sands, in the capacity to raise capital, you have to have you use the airport as an example, okay? So the airport was able to raise the capital on one single premise: the charging of passenger fees.
Yes.
Okay? They knew there's 1 million people going to this airport every year, and we had a PFS, I think is what they called it, a fee of starting off at $15, which was like the departure tax,
Right.
and built into the model over the next 10 years or whatever were mandated by the financial institution increases that Parliament could not even overturn. This was the condition of the loan. Okay? If you try to do anything else, we call the loan. Now, I'm saying to you that there's an economic model that must say, look, we can go and get these facilities. We are getting these facilities based on the capital for these facilities based on the fact that we know how many people are in the public service. We know the record of people who require health care. They are going to come here at a fee that is beneficial to the insurance company. There's a model.
There's a model.
Why can't it be done?
And we have adopted, embraced the concepts in that model, and we are in the process of revamping our approach so that we have a way of capitalizing the necessary improvements. And so when you look at the plans for the Public Hospital Authority and the healthcare system, it involves revenue-driven improvement. Okay, so you see the critical care tower. We recognize that there's only so hard you can flog a 70-year-old facility. And so we need to now replace the emergency room, replace the maternal child wing. And so that's the next tower that's going to be coming up right across the street, Grosvenor Close. Okay? That is
that
anticipated
imminent, or is that
because
just
that is
pie in the
imminent.
sky?
That is
Okay.
not pie in the sky. $140 million public-private
But
partnership.
it's funded by known revenue.
But the revenue is going to have to increase. And that means that you have to get the revenue that you know you're losing. So if we anticipate that we're losing $40 million a year, $40 million over a year,
Well, in
even
4
if you
years you pay
maintain
that
it,
to
that's
facility.
$160 million. That's
Yeah.
$160 million,
Yeah.
right? Now, it is likely to be more than that
Right. We have maintenance.
as you repatriate some of the spend in South Florida. Why should Bahamians be subsidizing Palmetto General Hospital and Jackson
Maybe
Memorial
Baptist
Hospital and Baptist and so on and so forth. They do so because they believe that it's the best thing for their loved ones. So if now you have an alternative and you can get quality care at home and you support your local economy and you provide for opportunities for young Bahamians to work as occupational therapists and radiographers and ultrasonographers and physicians and nurses and so on and so forth. It means now that we recognize that we have to be self-sufficient and that instead of us taking $1 billion out of our economy, and of that $1 billion we're spending $400 million of it in South Florida, that if we spend it here, the ripple effect is going to be huge.
I mean,
that
just
is,
the cost of people having to stay in hotel rooms alone because they have to go somewhere to stay with their family.
but there is a confidence challenge.
That's it, yeah.
And the confidence challenge is notwithstanding the fact that people acknowledge that, hey, I send my son to medical school and I send my daughter to dental school and so on and so forth. I ain't sure, So I am going to go elsewhere. So we typically say that when you come to the Bahamas, you become stupid.
But I think that there's let's just say this, obviously there's a private facility. And I think that where the services are available in that facility, that there is a confidence level in that facility, that people go to that facility and feel fairly comfortable and fairly confident. It's only where, there's some real specialty or there's something, most people will take that advantage. It's where folks who cannot afford it, who have an insurance, who can't, I don't know the reasons, but they certainly, I think there's a capacity to have that confidence.
Well, we have
That's
challenges mixing up the concept of cost and charge. So the charges in the public sector are way, way less than the cost of providing the service. But the cost in the public sector is more than it is in the private sector.
Because of all the
inefficiencies and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so
there's like 1 million people in the hallway.
Let's say to take an X-ray, you'll get charged $80 in the private sector. It probably costs $30 to produce that X-ray. It costs you the same $30 in the public sector or more, but you're only being charged $15 and only 10% of people are paying it.
Right.
So when the machine breaks down, you have no way to fix it. So now, when I come to get my X-ray, and they were going to charge me $15, I got to wait 3 hours to get the X-ray.
We're going to take a shift here, but when this is really bad, what I'm about to say, when the government of the Bahamas decided to insure most of its employees, and essentially, from what I understand in the NHI exercise, really the government of the Bahamas is the number one customer of insurance companies.
Correct.
Okay, so it's the greater portion of the revenue pool to insurance companies. How is it that at that point a management decision or a business recognition wasn't made? We have buying power here, and that buying power at a greater rate than we're paying now. For cost versus charges,
right?
So a greater chargeable rate is possible, and still remain under the chargeable rates elsewhere. So in other words, the insurance company should be jumping for joy. How come that wasn't recognized? I mean, I'm not in this business, and I recognize it in 2 seconds.
Let's just say it wasn't recognized, and when you realize that you have buying power, you have the ability to leverage that buying power for more attractive rates.
Right.
So I can say to somebody that does CAT scans, your market rate right now is $500 for a CAT scan. I can give you $200, but I can send you 10,000 patients.
Right.
Okay? Ultrasounds, you charge me $300, I can give you $75, but I can give you 20,000 ultrasounds this year.
Is it because the providers, just say, you know what, I'd rather get my one at 10,000 than my 10 at 1,000,
Again, traditionally, people could not depend on the government to survive.
Okay.
And so, Einstein said it pretty well, that if the solutions, I have to paraphrase it, if you try to solve problems the same way that you created them, it ain't gonna work.
Let me ask you this last question on that, on this system, and then I want to talk about the doctors. Is it viable that once you kind of have a realizable revenue, a realizable revenue stream that can fund capital? Because let's face it, the medical profession, the medical service or whatever, your provision of medical services is capital intensive, right?
Yes.
So once you have a realizable stream of revenue with incremental increases that don't necessarily impact the consumer, because we have a void. We have a void where consumers are paying through their insurance very high charges, and that could come down on more volume. Do you then see the possibility of the privatization of healthcare?
Yes. I think that, let's get away from the boogeyman of the private sector leaving out the vulnerable. Okay?
Right.
I prefer to think of it more as an elevation in the quality of care delivered to all patients who can now be considered as private patients. So they have the dignity of having their concerns being met, having the concerns of their family members being considered, that they are treated with dignity, that we have a patient bill of rights. Now, when you talk about how much Dr. Sands gets paid for a particular procedure on a patient, Dr. Sands may get paid $10 for a patient who is a public patient, and he may get $75 for doing the same thing on a private patient.
Right.
Someone who has insurance.
But that difference is not made up by the quality of care delivered, but by the creature comforts that's provided, by choice in terms of access to a particular operating room, and so on and so forth. I like to use the analogy of that 747 or A380 going from New York to London. You got a bunch of people in the back of the bus. They ain't got much leg room. They eating tuna fish sandwich.
Yeah.
They got
chips.
soda,
chips,
etc. Right?
pretzels.
Then you got people in business class. They got a little bit more. Then you got people in first class with caviar and champagne.
You gotta get
same pilot, same crew. They get to the destination at the same time, but the experience is totally different in first class than it is in economy.
Right.
But the people in economy pay $1,000. The people in first class pay $7,000 for that trip.
But the gallstones still get out.
Okay, but at the end of the day, what you basically do is you provide choice. And Bahamians like to pay for things.
It's amenities.
Okay?
It's amenities.
I could afford it.
Comforts.
You know what I'm saying? Different levels of amenities.
If I could afford it, I want a flat screen, 30-inch TV in my room.
The 80-inch.
That's
Okay? I want original art on the wall.
Yeah.
I want to have a choice of 5 different entrees for dinner tonight, even though I'm in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I can pay for it.
Yeah. 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 And perhaps a butler.
Perhaps. And I can style and I can tell my friends, come look at me.
Or I can get a decent meal, but not a substandard meal.
But it should not have any impact on whether I live or die.
Right.
And what happens right now
I'm going to die.
in the private sector versus the public sector, and this is based on Sanagest data, that there is a statistically significant increased risk of dying on the public ward than on the private ward.
And that's in the same facility.
And that's in the same facility, right down the hall.
Yeah.
Okay? Or if you look at cesarean section rates, or if you look at a number of measurable indicators, there should be no difference. No difference.
All right, we got to go. When we come back, we're going to talk about the doctors. Obviously, going to talk about what's
I want
happening.
to talk about the dialysis.
Yeah.
Well.
We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Rogan Smith, if I think of Bahamians, and it's probably global, but we're dealing with Bahamians, would take the time to maybe understand this stuff, it doesn't become as complicated, or it isn't as complicated as others would. And then maybe we would start demanding certain things, because really this is basic. It's obviously it's mammoth, but it's basic, and not only that, it's not like, once again, it's not like we're inventing the wheel here. This is every doctor's office has this billing system.
Right.
I go to a doctor, they give me a card, it's wrong. And the government of the Bahamas doesn't
Can't
have
do
it?
it right.
Now, go ahead.
ahead.
Now, let's talk about the doctors. We recently saw quite a few young doctors. I think they're called the
Senior house officers.
Consultants.
No. The consultants
different?
would be the senior most physicians. That's
Okay.
the CPSA.
Uh-huh.
That would be
You
like
have a
me.
problem with them too? You have a problem with them and the young doctors?
Well, I mean, look, I was one of the founding members of CPSA.
Okay.
And, I would have had issues with my salary back then.
This is all salary?
No,
based,
it's
right?
not all salary.
Okay.
But there are non-economic issues and there are economic issues.
Okay.
So it's salary, it's respect, it is health insurance, it's
Right.
malpractice coverage, etc.
Okay.
And they have valid concerns. So when you have the people who are ultimately responsible for the delivery of care and you are reimbursed at the same rate or lesser rate than the people that you supervise, there's something wrong with that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the issue has been that the Public Hospital Authority has been attempting to negotiate, and the concern is that the negotiations have not proceeded as quickly and with the level of commitment, according to the CPSA, as they'd like to see. And so they have been agitating to move it along even more quickly.
So again, economics. Let's see with the economic side. Y'all ain't got no money. That's number one. Let's destroy it like that. Y'all ain't got no money. We ain't got no money. We want more money. That's the formula. Okay? That's the formula. How do you get in the middle where we know y'all ain't got no money, but we want more?
Well, I mean, what you have to do is look at what is costing you and what your revenue is. Okay? The first thing you want to do is make sure that you're not wasting or throwing away money or people ain't thieving it. Okay? And we've gone through that exercise. We have modified some contracts and so on and so forth and tried to make sure that the hospital system is getting value for money. Mm-hmm. The second thing is to try and increase revenue and to eliminate whatever waste that you can. But we are still at a point where there needs to be additional revenue. You cannot run the Public Hospital Authority at $216 million in 2018 and provide the level of services that you're providing. Mm-hmm. If you wish to retain your nurses, if you wish to retain top quality physicians and so on and so forth.
And you're bleeding nurses, correct?
Yeah, we're losing nurses at a horrendous clip, in large part because they can go to the private sector locally or they can go to
They're going abroad, a lot of them, huh?
the United States, Canada, Great Britain, whatever. Now, that problem is not unique to the Bahamas, but who cares about what's happening elsewhere? It's happening in the Bahamas, and we have a deficit of about 800
and then we can't
nurses
attract
right
nurses from abroad because our compensation packages
Well,
are
we can
not...
attract them from the Philippines, and we can attract them from
Okay.
Jamaica, and we can
Yeah.
attract them from places that don't compensate as well.
Right. Okay.
But oftentimes it's a stepping stone. They come to us, spend a year or two, and then bam, they're in the
Uh-huh.
United States. So the issue is that, when Bahamians talk about compensation, they want themselves to be well compensated. But when they have to pay for a service that they believe ought to be free,
Right, that's what it is.
okay, they don't make the
Correct.
connection that in order for nurse X to be well compensated and make more than $26,000 a year, maybe I got to pay more. Oh, and I ain't for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just getting the service delivered. It seems to me, Dr. Sands, and I know Rogan has a question as well about something else, that this all, I've seen you say it in the paper, is all about revenue-driven services. We go to that airport, and we pay the airline ticket. And again, this is choice. It's not a right or an entitlement. And we pay that extra fee. Most of us don't even know it's in there, and we are proud of that airport. Well, certainly, you want to be in a position where in a country like this, you can go to the hospital, you can feel that your loved one is being taken care of, you can feel that this is a facility that you can be proud of. And how do you get that? And I always say, that's why I'm a little bemused, because I always say that people don't mind paying for things if they get. See, we got a quagmire. They feel as if they're not getting something which you're asking them to pay for.
Right.
That's why the paradigm has to be, you got to go get some financing based on this model of increased revenues, which already, see, this is what, I'm sorry to harp on this. It's one thing for the guy off the street who's not insured to have to pay more money. That's one thing. But you got this major pool of people who are paying an insurance premium, you paying the premium, that they are billing to insurance companies that you could bill higher. It seems to me the revenue stream is there. I'm going to go on the premise that you say that model is being worked on as we speak.
So let's look at a different, less contentious issue. the 1,000 or so people that get involved in motor vehicle accidents a year. So Rogan driving on the road on her phone. She ain't checking. Okay? She smash into me, break my leg,
We ain't checking,
break
pal.
my arm, etc. I go to the hospital. I ought to be able to get my medical care paid for by her insurance.
Right.
Okay? But seldom does that ever happen.
And the car insurance.
And the car
Right,
insurance,
yeah.
okay? Or workman's
And it's because
compensation.
you don't have no billing, you don't have nothing to bill.
Precisely. Okay? So if you look at the number of cases, and let's say that it's 1,000 road traffic accidents a year, and let's say that 60% of them are third-party related, okay? Then every single one of those patients should be private patients paid for by
Sure.
the Road Act.
Under the Road Traffic Act, I want to say that when it comes to bodily injury, and I could be wrong on this,
250,000.
I thought it was unlimited.
I think it's 250,000, but I stand to be
When it
corrected.
came to third-party bodily injury, i.e., you hit the other person, I thought it was unlimited. But the point, forget whether it's unlimited. You don't need unlimited. The average person, if they need a cast, they only need about $2,000. You should be getting that $2,000.
But imagine now that you can generate, let's say, $1 million or $2 million from the Road Act.
Right.
Imagine that you can generate $3 million from workman's compensation. Imagine that you can generate 15 or 20 or $30 million now.
So y'all just ain't billing no one.
Correct.
It ain't that they ain't
But he-
paying.
but he said
Y'all
that.
ain't
We
billing.
don't have the mechanism to bill, and we have statutory or policy restrictions that say that if you are below a certain age, you don't pay. If you're above a certain age, you don't pay.
Yeah,
If you're a
that's
civil
part of the
servant, you don't pay.
problem as
If you say you don't have the money, you don't pay. Okay?
But if you're so, what percentage of civil servants are covered under insurance?
I don't know the answer to that, but
It's
you
a
got
great portion,
politicians, policemen, teachers,
The
nurses,
BPSU, all them
doctors.
people.
No, not all of them.
Because I think BPSU, quite a few
But the Bahamian people spend about $80 million
on premiums.
on premiums to Kalina right now.
Right.
And very little of that money goes to the benefit of Princess Margaret, Rand Memorial Hospital, Sandilands.
Because you got to think that the
public
billable was
clinics.
more, maybe even more than $80 million. And if you believe insurance companies, they'd say they were operated at a loss.
Even if you say you try to get 25% of that money
That's
spent
$20
in
million.
our healthcare system, okay? Imagine now what that could do for improved imaging, for maintaining the operating room equipment, maintaining the lab equipment, and so on and so forth, giving improved nurse salary, paying the ancillary staff better, keeping the place cleaner, making sure
So
that you
what
have a
you're
fresh coat
saying
of paint,
in a
etc.
nutshell, because we're beating this to the dead horse, is that if we've been doing this for say 10 to 15 years, we've lost $300 million.
To give
If
you
you
an
look at $20
idea,
million,
even
$300
of
million.
the billing,
It's ridiculous.
so Rogan and Ed, of the billing that has been done, the Princess Margaret Hospital currently has in uncollected receivables almost $800 million of outstanding bills.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
tell you what, put me in charge of collecting that, eh? I in charge of collecting. I only want
Today.
5%.
We only have like 5 more minutes on the
That's
show,
what
so
you
I just
think.
wanted to let's talk a little bit about the dialysis unit. Obviously, the newspaper had the glaring headline about it being in crisis. I was a little concerned after I was reading Mary Walker's comments. She's talking about the optimal time for treatment for the dialysis, and the patients aren't even getting that. So let's talk a little bit about that and what the plan is moving forward. She put forth a suggestion about, I guess, what is it? Using somebody on the private entities to accommodate these patients. What's the plan there?
So let's say that I believe that Bahamians are entitled to know that we need to move to an era of absolute transparency. You need to know what the waiting times is for surgery. You need to know what the outcomes are. Need to know what the complication rates are, how long people are getting dialysis, how many people are on dialysis. As long as you sanitize the data so that you can recognize patients, Bahamians should know what is my chance of dying if I have a coronary bypass operation at Princess Margaret Hospital. Okay? So what we're doing is we're allowing people to see it as it is. And we say, here's what it is. Here's what we need to do to fix it. Here's the timeline to fix it. Here's how we're going to fix it. And here's what it's going to cost. Because then I can say to you, you ought to be paying $275 a session for dialysis. That's what the law says you should be paying 3 times a week. We realize that most people can't pay that. But
Wow.
why don't you pay $25? Okay?
Mhm.
Because there are people who can pay who do not pay.
Right.
And so, while no person who is unable should be made to pay if they cannot pay,
Mhm.
it is a matter of solidarity and shared responsibility that if you have the ability to
The
pay,
means.
the means to pay,
do.
then you should contribute. And you should contribute more than the person
Who
who
doesn't
has
have the
less.
means. Mhm.
And what we have not done is to ensure that we maximize the revenue in order to make some of these changes. And we are going to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to cry foul.
So in other words, when I come in there, I got to show you some things where I work,
Right. I was
that
gonna
kind of
ask,
stuff.
What all
I
are you
can't just
asking
tell
for?
you whether I can afford it.
And,
How do
and-
you determine who has means and who doesn't?
And well, there are appropriate ways of means testing, and the social service people do that quite well. So when you go to social services and say you need some money for your rent, they have a validated means testing approach and say, okay, we could give you rent assistance for a month, but don't come back here next month and don't come back here the month after that. And then there's some people who did support for 3 months and some did support for longer.
And what is your means testing?
Again, it's not me that's doing the means testing, it's done through social services.
Oh, social services handles that.
So there's
somebody
a
needs to go
social
on
service
dialysis.
attachment to the hospital. Matter of fact, it's right down the street, a few doors down.
Okay.
And so somebody says, hey, I don't have the ability to pay.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to be able to do is to determine whether truly you can pay that $10.
Mm-hmm.
And some may say this is an elitist comment. I don't believe it is, but I refuse to believe that 87% of Bahamians cannot
sir.
pay $10.
No, sir.
Not
sir.
87%.
No, go to the parking lot of the airport and you see where they're going. Okay?
And,
A lot of
and
people-
the park costs
Yeah,
more than $10.
yeah.
But we have culturally
Mm-hmm.
accepted
47%, no
a
mortgage
view
payments.
that we shouldn't pay,
Mm-hmm.
but then we don't make the connection with the fact that the hospital is in the state that it's in. We don't make that connection. Okay? And we need to start making that connection.
And so in the interim, are you going to be enlisting these private entities to assist with these individuals?
Public-private partnerships, the way to go. Public-private partnerships for billing and collection, public-private partnerships for provision of service, public-private partnerships for x-rays, for surgery, for dialysis, for...
See, this is why it goes back to this question, Rogan, of privatization, right? All of the hospitals that we go to in Florida, they're all private hospitals, okay? And we expect a certain standard, right? If there's no incentive seemingly in the public sector to do these things. I don't understand it. It just blows me away. But we've got to get to the point where if you don't understand the connection, you're going to have to be made to understand. Because first of all, it just can't be free.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to get away from that free mentality. We saw it 3 times today. We're talking about this. We're talking about
Mortgage
national insurance.
corporation,
We're talking about
corporation.
the mortgage corporation. Where the hell does this happen?
Right.
It has been a useful political tool
I
that
blame
we have
you,
to
you know.
abandon.
I
What's that?
blame you, know. The politicians.
Yeah, but I just reach.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this here.
Specifically,
I
you know
know,
you know.
I know.
You know what I mean when I say, you know.
So,
the class.
so we politicians
Yeah.
have created this.
Well, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Here's the deal, and this is I don't care about it. If you're in there to make a useful change, forget about winning an election,
Precisely.
okay?
Just got to go
And
in
just
and
do what
it.
you got to do.
Just do it.
If you lose, but guess what? At least
You
we
fix
got a
some
decent
stuff.
system.
I believe that this cabinet, led by this Prime Minister, Hubert Minnis, and certainly this Minister of Health, recognizes that to do the right thing sometimes means that you've got to take some unpopular decisions.
If you got to lose, at
Precisely.
least when you get beat, at least if you have to go to the hospital,
You
you
be
can go to a
straight.
decent hospital.
You clean it up for yourself at least.
And management of change is very, very difficult sometimes, and people like to call you names, So,
That's all right.
but I believe that our healthcare system will be better, and
Well, that
after
will
we
be-
go through this back and forth, As long as we're solving problems along the way, I think we'll get some.
Let me ask you a question, because this will be the measurement, and we've got to go right after this. This will be the measurement. In 3 years' time, 3.5 years' time, you will be called to account. Do you think that there will be a measurable and recognizable improvement to the healthcare system that you would be able to say, you would be able to stand on?
The answer is yes, and I can say that there has already been measurable improvement in the healthcare system. And now what we have to do is to continue to build on that. But yes, if we don't have measurable improvement that people can touch, see, and feel, then I have failed.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Dwayne Sands.
Thank you, Dr. Sands.
Rogan Smith, always so, your AKA Smythe. Good to see you again. It's a holiday on Monday.
We won't be here.
What is the holiday again?
National
Heroes Day.
National Heroes Day. Because first you had Discovery Day, you had Columbus Day. We just change them every week.
every
Okay?
2 years we'll change it.
Yeah, now who knows it could be that. Yeah. So happy holiday to everyone out there for Monday. Happy National Heroes Day. Yeah. We'll see you on Thursday. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Dr.
96.1 KISS.